Penny and Benny's Math Fun, The Ruler. Penny and Benny teach how to build a doghouse. Written by Nancy Jepson and Kevin Richard. Dear teachers, tutors, parents, step-parents, foster parents, grandparents, and children everywhere, if you want to learn more about math concepts and be entertained in the process, then you have come to the right place. It doesn't matter what living situation you are in, what nationality you are, where you come from, if you have money or no money, if you are a boy or a girl, what age you are, and if learning is easy or hard for you. Penny and Benny are here for you. Who are Penny and Benny? Penny and Benny are two dogs who are best friends. They like to figure things out and to problem solve. Penny is a golden retriever, and Benny is a mini golden doodle. Penny and Benny want to invite you to come along with them as they teach you how to use a ruler to build a doghouse. The Ruler, Penny and Benny teach how to build a doghouse, can be read individually, with a group of kids, or with family members. It does not matter if you are in a car, in a castle, in a classroom, or out of school. You can take Penny and Benny with you. The activities and fun facts section of the book provide opportunities for classrooms of kids and families to figure things out and to problem solve together. Logical thinking skills, math strategies, and specific math concepts are reviewed, which help each child extend math knowledge and apply that knowledge in the real world. When people participate with others, positive math and reading attitudes expand for all involved. Thank you for your continued support in making math competency and reading literacy skills increase for all children. Penny asked Benny, "Do you want to go to the library?" Penny answered, "Yes, the library is our favorite place to figure things out and to problem solve. What should we learn about today?" Benny answered, "I want to learn how to measure using the ruler because I want to build a doghouse." They both called out, "Let's go!" At the library, Penny and Benny saw books, newspapers, magazines, computers, and a list on the wall of local guest speakers, authors, and storytellers. Penny and Benny looked at a lot of measuring books and online computer articles about how to measure using the ruler. They asked the kind librarian if they could use 2 rulers, 2 pencils, and some paper while they worked at the table. She happily handed rulers, pencils, and papers to Penny and Benny. Penny and Benny sat at the library table and continued to read books and online articles about the ruler and measuring. They learned rulers are for measuring straight lines. They learned you always start measuring at the 0 or the left edge of the ruler. They learned another way to show inches is to use the mark, and another way to show feet is to use the little mark. Penny and Benny learned the different size lines on a ruler are called tick marks, hatch marks, or hash marks. Since those names all mean the same thing, they decided to use the word all dogs remember, tick marks. The largest tick mark equals a full inch, and there are 12 inches in 1 foot on the ruler. The other tick marks stand for part of an inch, or a fraction of an inch. Penny and Benny studied the tick marks on the rulers they were holding. They wanted to figure out a way to remember what all of the tick marks on their rulers stood for and what they were named. "Let's draw!" Penny and Benny started drawing a 0 to 1 inch picture with unnamed tick marks on it. Penny and Benny looked at their rulers again. They saw patterns with the sizes of the tick marks. They figured out the biggest tick mark was the full inch. The next large tick mark was the half inch. When they looked at the half-inch tick mark, they could count 2 equal spaces for 1 inch. The medium-sized tick mark was the 1/4 inch. When they looked at the 1/4 inch tick mark, they could count 4 equal spaces for 1 inch. The smaller tick mark was the 1/8 inch. When they looked at the 1/8 inch tick mark, they could count 8 equal spaces for 1 inch. The smallest tick mark was the 16th inch. When they looked at the 1/16th inch tick mark, they could count 16 equal spaces for 1 inch. They saw the tick marks told you what part of the inch you were measuring. 1 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, and 1/16 inch. Penny and Benny decided to write and color the names of all the tick marks on one picture. They asked the kind librarian if they could use her metal cup of colored pencils. She happily handed her metal cup of colored pencils to Penny and Benny. Penny and Benny noticed sometimes on the tick marks there were many measurements. They figured out the measurement on the tick mark you want to use is the one on the bottom. Penny and Benny figured out it was good to measure to the closest tick mark to measure most accurately. They figured out when you measure things accurately, things fit together better. Still sitting at the library table, Penny and Benny decided it was time to practice measuring using the ruler. It was time to build the doghouse. They drew a plan with the measurements of the doghouse they wanted to build. They wrote a supply list. They returned their rulers, pencils, and reading materials to the kind librarian and thanked her for letting them use the paper. They left the library to go to the hardware store to get the doghouse supplies. On the way, they sang their favorite song. "We are figuring things out. We are problem solvers. Let's shout. Learning together is so much fun. We're so glad learning is never done." At the hardware store, they bought the materials they would need for the floor, walls, and roofs. They bought screws and nails to hold those pieces together. Penny and Benny left the hardware store and went to Benny's house. Using their plan and their rulers, they measured and traced the floor, walls, and roof pieces on the wood. They made sure their measurements on the plan matched what they measured on the wood. They cut out the pieces and put them on the ground to see if the pieces fit. The pieces fit perfectly. Penny and Benny measured correctly using the ruler. One at a time, Penny and Benny connected the 4 walls to the floor and to each other using the nails and screws. Benny asked, "Is it time to put on the roof?" Penny replied, "Yes! We have the 2 roof pieces cut and ready to connect to the top of the doghouse." Once the roof was connected to the top of the doghouse, Penny and Benny began to paint the doghouse. When the paint on the doghouse was dry, they put Penny and Benny above the door. Benny said, "You always have a place to stay when you come to my house, Penny." Penny's smile was as big as a 12-inch ruler. While looking at the finished doghouse, Penny and Benny smiled. Benny said, "We didn't know how to measure using the ruler. We figured out how to measure the ruler so we could build a doghouse." Penny replied, "Yes, Benny, we figured things out. We are problem solvers." Benny said, "Let's put problem solvers above our names on the doghouse. Will it fit, Penny?" "I'm sure it will if we figure things out and problem solve," said Penny. Penny and Benny raced off to measure the space above their names on the doghouse. You could hear them singing their favorite song. "We are figuring things out. We are problem solvers. Let's shout. Learning together is so much fun. We're so glad learning is never done." Look into the doghouse to read more fun ruler facts from Penny and Benny. Benny said, "We sure had an exciting day filled with lots of learning and fun. Do you know what I might dream about tonight?" Penny yawned and wagged her tail, asking, Oh, what, Benny? Benny excitedly answered, I might dream about the 12-inch ruler. After we built the doghouse, I learned even more about the ruler. Penny was curious. Tell me, what did you learn? Benny answered, Well, did you know that 12 inches is called a foot? In different countries, they have cool names for the 12-inch measurement, like Voigt in Belgium, Fit in Scotland, and Stopa in the Czech Republic. Penny wiggled in excitement, her tail doing a little happy dance. Benny continued, We walked 1 mile today to the library. A mile is 1,760 yards, or 5,280 feet. 3 feet make a yard, and 12 inches make a foot. A fun way to remember how many feet in a mile is to say 5 tomatoes. 5 tomatoes sounds like 5280. Looking at her paws, Penny wondered, I wonder how many inches long and wide are my nails. Benny, deep in thought, said, In ancient Egypt, they used the distance between a person's shoulder and the tip of their finger to measure things like corn stalks. Isn't that fascinating? Penny pondered, I wonder how far our doghouse is from Egypt in inches, feet, and yards. Benny, still deep in thought, asked Penny, Do you remember Thomas Jefferson? Penny confidently answered, Yes, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence draft in 1776. Other leaders like Ben Franklin, John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson himself later made changes to the original draft. Benny exclaimed, Wow, Penny, you know so much about math and history. Penny replied, Thank you, Benny. You and I both know how fun learning is and how learning is never done. Benny sighed and said, My goodness, Penny, you are right. And I wasn't done telling you about Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson's friend, Joseph Eliot, made a 12-inch ruler out of brass. Penny sniffed curiously. Did he become president too? Benny replied, No, but he left quite a legacy. He had lots of money, $16 million. Can you imagine how much dog food we could have if we had that much money? Penny grinned, imagining a doggy mansion with a pool. Penny then shared, I heard at the hardware store that the first dog houses were built out of mud, not wood. Can you imagine living in a muddy house? Benny gratefully answered, Our doghouse keeps us safe and cozy no matter what the weather. Penny reflected, Some dogs have jobs like hunting and sledding. We're lucky to play and cuddle with our family. Benny, happy to share more ruler facts, added, Did you know the first pet dog found buried with a family was a border collie in Germany 14,000 years ago? Benny, loving the ruler talk with Benny, but knowing it was time to sleep, remarked, History is amazing, and the ruler is even more amazing. Let's get some sleep for another fun day of figuring things out and problem solving tomorrow. Benny, feeling such happiness to have a best friend like Penny to figure things out and to problem solve with, asked Penny, Could we sing our song together before going to sleep? Penny smiled at Benny and said, Yes, what a perfect way to end a perfect day. We are figuring things out. We are problem solvers. Let's shout. Learning together is so much fun. We're so glad learning is never done. Parents, grandparents, teachers, if your youngster enjoyed this educational math video book and you would like to help us, 1, increase our distribution to other families and schools and institutions, plus 2, help us create a second instructional math story featuring Penny and Benny, you can make a tax-deductible donation in any amount by clicking on a donation link on the following websites: kidsandfriendship.com, nevadascolorfulchildren.com, educatingfosteryouth.org. And we would like to say a special thank you to KidCentric LLC at kidscentricarts.com, Heritage Bank in Reno, Nevada, Sierra Association of Foster Care.